Just about clutch it out. What a nail-biting game. Today we're going to be looking at Gardevoir EX in the Paradox Rift expansion. There are definitely some challenges for Gardevoir in this new format, with both Iron Valiant and Iron Hands users trying to take advantage of our slower setup approach with our low hit point evolving Pokemon. However, Gardevoir is still one of the top performers in the format, and it has so many comeback cards in the game that it can come out of all sorts of awkward situations. Gaining the Scream Tail from this set, as well as Counter Catcher, has really given this deck new ways of adapting from certain board states, new ways to disrupt opponents, and new ways to create all sorts of comeback win conditions. The fact that we can Gust or Snipe in addition to Iono now really does allow this deck to be even more defensive than ever, which is incredible. The deck, of course, revolves around our Gardevoir EX, which uses that Psychic Embrace ability as often as we like during our turn to attach a Psychic energy from our discard to one of our Psychic Pokemon. So we are going to be damaging our own Pokemon. That means that the main damage cap for the Brainwave Shining Arcana Gardevoir before using an energy attachment from the hand is going to be 240 damage, and Zacian is pretty much only limited to the amount of psychic energy that you can bin. We've also got the Scream Tail, the new card from Paradox Rift that deals 20 to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each counter on this Pokemon. In our deck list without Luxurious Cape, we cap out at 160 damage. That's enough for us to deal with a number of single prizes like Bibarel, like Gardevoirs in the Mirror Match, Baxcalibur, these sorts of Pokemon. But of course it also hits the multi-prizer of Squawkabilly EX, which features in a number of Miraidon players lists, Roaring Moon lists, Entei Valiant lists. So 160 is a much better threshold in the TCG now, which makes this a really nice uptrade Pokemon, or just a card that can go 1-for-1 whilst disrupting the opponent. You'll notice I'm sticking with Cresselia and Zacian V. These are a bit more debatable these days. I do think Cresselia is the more versatile Lost Zone tech, because it's also a great way of dealing with early Bidoof, dealing with Ralts, dealing with other evolving Pokemon in the opening stages, and is still one of our better defensive cards against the Lost Zone players, especially if the opponent comes in aggressively with Cramorant. Us simply allowing the Cramorant to sit in the active whilst we Moonglow through their con phase can slow their ramp to 10 cards in the Lost Zone, and means that we have to deal with Sableye possibly a turn later, which is fantastic. Sometimes you can see the harder tech card from Paradox Rift of Jirachi come in place of this Cresselia. I would only really make that change if I wasn't necessarily expecting the mirror, or if I expected a ton of Yoga Loop in Valiant lists, or if I was very afraid of Lost Zone box. At the moment, I feel like the format is wide enough that you can get away with Cresselia because it's the more well-rounded card. And then Zacian V, it's pretty much always been in Gardevoir EX, but it is becoming more and more contentious. I do feel like it competes with a space in the list for that Luxurious Cape. The Cape pushes your Scream Tail to be a much more dangerous sniping attacker, but it also makes your Brainwave Gardevoir, yes, a 2-prize Pokemon, but essentially the same as a Zacian, where it can be a late-game finisher as well. So Luxurious Cape is not an awkward lead like Zacian can sometimes be. And you can also combine Lost Vacuum with Luxurious Cape to make some really interesting plays to enable your Counter Catcher or Reversal Energy. But the upsides of Zacian is that it's just an additional Pokemon in your deck, so when you are coming up against Lost City, definitely from Charizard players, you have an extra attacking threat. Same thing for the Mew matchup. And against the Lost Zone players, especially because we do play the Churro scenario, this can be an early game sponge. You Roar of the Sword out some of your energy cards. It can be a card that gets early Storm Slashes in whilst you protect the rest of your Ralts army, and then you hope to find Churro scenario as well. Avery is also one of the big winners from Paradox Rift. It's a simple draw 3, which is already like okay in Gardevoir because we can amass large hand sizes, but it forces the opponent to discard Pokemon from their bench until they have 3 remaining. This could be a really nasty combo with Scream Tail or Counter Catcher, where we're going to try and limit our opponent's engine Pokemon, then pick off possibly another one. Obviously, Avery can force the opponent to get rid of their Manaphy, enabling your Scream Tail to be useful, or, with the threat of Scream Tail, forces them to essentially a 2 bench instead of 3 because they're forcing a Manaphy to stay in place. Whilst in the similar vein, we can combine it with Counter Catcher on the same turn, and if the opponent has sometimes like Frigibax and Baxcalibur, they choose to get rid of Frigibax knowing they have the backup of Baxcalibur, you just Counter Catcher the Bax and KO that, and then suddenly they have no more engine Pokemon whatsoever. I think one of the biggest debates in the community right now has been whether or not to play Battle VIP Pass. This was previously like a staple in Gardevoir and pretty much no one deviated from that, but because there's so many great tools that can fit into Gardevoir now, that some players have gone towards cutting the VIP Pass Pass, making space for the likes of Artisan, which is just another stadium bounce to Path to the Peak, higher counts of Fog and Ultra Ball, and then gain a space somewhere. Essentially right now I'm only playing one counter catcher, very often that's a 2 count in the deck list. You'll also notice that because I'm hybriding, I am still playing the Mysterious Tail Mew. Oftentimes if you're not playing Battle VIP Pass, this card is much less useful, so the Mew oftentimes makes its way out of the deck list. But overall I still am favouring the Battle VIP Pass. The main reason being is that there are some very aggressive tempo decks still in the game where you want to develop very early Manaphy, you want to develop Greninja for additional draw in the opening stages. Your mission is still to get your Psych Energy banked in the bin over the first few turns, so you can capitalize on Psychic Embrace once you get there. And of course it means that you're not just all in on Mirage Step. It's obviously a phenomenal attack to have in the deck list, and in many matchups you will try and go for the Mirage Step to develop the best board possible, but there are situations, certainly against Iron Hands, where you're going to forego too many prize cards if you commit to a Mirage Step line. So in some regards, having Battle VIP Pass, having additional draw and dig from Mysterious Tail and Greninja developed earlier on the board, gives us this push towards the rare candy, so we can try and bounce back into Iron Hands in particular. However, like I said, we are hybriding, because we are still playing Lumineon V. This is oftentimes something that you don't see in the VIP Pass builds, because again, it's just more space that we're having to concede here, but I think Lumineon is still an exceptional card to have in the deck list. Yes, it is a 2-prize Pokemon, yes, it is a liability, and I know we're only playing 3 copies of Ultra Ball, but we are, at the end of the day, still increasing our outs to hit supporters in the opening stages, and because we naturally want to play Pal Pad and a menagerie of one-off supporters, Lumineon still makes a huge amount of sense here. Professor Churo's Scenario is one of our key defensive supporter cards to help out against block Snorlax, so we don't simply get trapped and lose in the matchup. Simply playing 1 count plus the Pal Pad gives us 2 ways to escape from the block, and of course we play Boss's Orders in the deck list as well, so ideally you use Churo, you use Boss, you Pal Pad Churo and Boss, and suddenly you found lots of ways around block. The Pal Pad's already a great card. You love having this to reload Avery against Mew and against the Mirror, also against Chien-Pao, and of course it means that we get to skimp out on path bounces, because Worker ends up being like a 1.5 stadium bounces, I suppose, because you can Pal Pad back the Worker as well. We are still playing the Vacuum in the Collapse Stadium. It's slightly lower than other lists here and there, because again, I have that really high ball search count, I have Mew, and I have Lumineon. Some people are making concessions for these here and there, whereas I think that there's a low enough amount of path in the format, plus we still have 3 outs immediately, plus a reload whenever we do come up against the heavy path builds, and I think it's actually pretty okay, especially when the Mew can cherry pick the Vacuum as well from the top 6, so I think Vacuum's just a really good card, synergizes with the Mew, also has great upside of getting rid of Bravery Charm or Ancient Booster Energy Capsule, so an Iron Hands doesn't go haywire on us, a Roaring Moon isn't just too far out of our hit points range, it can also get rid of random Forest Seal Stones when people are trying to bank those and we're trying to hand disrupt with Iono. There's just so many reasons why the Vacuum is versatile and powerful that it's definitely like my favourite stadium bounce actually in the deck list. I am still playing the Collapse Stadium. Again, with the Churro and Collapse, I feel pretty confident using Lumineon. I feel okay with being able to remove EXs in late game situations when we're under threat. So I feel like these are still the primary cards to have in the deck list, and then it's really about whether or not you want to work in the Artisan. But like I said, I feel pretty comfortable with my current outs. You'll notice in the video that, as always, I'm playing around with counts in the deck list, so it's not always going to be the exact same 60 that you're looking at here, but this is what I've landed on. I think the most contentious counts is that I'm only at 1 counter catcher, and I'm not playing a secondary stadium card alongside Collapsed and Vacuum. But like I said, the supporting Pokemon of Fish and Mew are both so strong that whenever I've tried the other build, I've always felt that I'm lacking both of these cards. So let me know your thoughts about divvying up these engine cards. Do you prefer playing no Fish plus VIP Mew, or do you prefer playing no VIP Pass, the heavier Ultra Ball Fog Crystal count, and the Lumineon in that list? I'll hear your thoughts down below, and enjoy the games. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code, OmniPoke. So we're getting into our first game. We had a mulligan there, so we know we're up against Charizard, and we've got to keep an eye out for Vengeful Punch as well, because we saw that in their opening mulligan, which is definitely a spooky card for Gardy. So we need to keep an eye on our Lost Vacuum. Our opponent's able to get a Bidoof down. Fleetfoot gets Manaphy to protect around Screen Tail, which is already in the active. We're going to see Charmander and Mew. They can actually jet into their Mews. They can get Mysterious Tail off here as well. Pretty solid start. Does whiff from the Mew, which is a bit unfortunate, but passes over to us. We have a okay start. We have a few of our ball search options here. We have level Fog. We can grab Psychic. And attaching and slapping sounds quite bad. And I was between Iono and Worker. We do end up Workering and rip the VIP. I figured that it's pretty rare that a Charizard is able to get Gust Pressure if I was only able to find one Ralts, but we were fortunate in finding the VIP. And we do get second Ralts and Guardy, which is pretty good. And I really wanted to have the slap pressure, actually. The attachment on active helps me Mirage Step, but also it lets me pressurize the Mew in case the opponent does whiff on Charizard. And because they've gone for Iono turn 2, it's actually pretty reasonable for them to miss. So they do end up whiffing, which is pretty good for us. It means I can maintain a one-prize board state here. And honestly, the hand is like strong enough that I probably don't need to Mirage Step. I could just take the tempo prize and go Kirlia here and just work towards getting another Ralts into play, which is actually exactly what we hit from the concealed cards. Now we can toss Cress pretty happily. The opponent's got Jirachi and Manaphy down, so they're trying to tech around our single prize mons. Our hand is honestly really good for next turn as well, so I might just go for Slap again here. We're holding Candy Guardy, which is pretty tempting to hold, but we are going to refresh here. We do draw into a ton of energy cards, which isn't a bad thing for us. We do have to work towards getting another Guardy next turn, but we also get to plant an energy down, which is nice. I'm going to pop it on the Mirage Step Kirlia, just so that if the opponent is hunting Refinement, I at least keep energy around. And we can finish off the Mew with a 2-turn slap combo, which is kind of good. The opponent now does have Arven, so you have to imagine Charizard's coming in. There's Vengeful Punch as well. There's the gold Charizard coming into play. Going to start powering up. We really want them to actually attack with Entei, because it's in much easier reach for us. They're going to avenge their bench dude. They can go for a Forest Seal Stone here as well. They probably want to develop Bibarel here, I would imagine. Maybe even Forest Seal for Ultra Ball so they can reduce their hand size for a better Bib. Let's see. They definitely should have fleet-footed first. But hey-ho. And they actually don't play any card after the Forest. That's really curious, honestly. Definitely makes Iono a really, like, kind of big priority supporter here, if we can make that come off. Picking up Guardy EX is a really nice draw, actually, for the turn. So we're going to be nice and on our way here to replying onto this Entei. Lumineon's not a bad pickup either. We get even more Kirlia into the mix now. There's Iono as well, which is great. We have 4 Psychic in the bin. 5, so we can candy the benched Guardy EX. Just means we get to keep as much draw around as possible. And then we're going to go for the Iono. We can Arcana. And then I can actually just turn attach this 6th Psychic Energy and get the KO. So we're keeping up on trade, which is nice right now. The opponent Forest Seal Stoned, but then we've been able to shuffle that to the bottom of their deck, which is really good for us. They still haven't developed Barrel, which is kind of curious. See, I'm debating on the Pal Pad, because the Ionos are going to get substantially weaker for us, and they have the option to be Barrel, so I do end up holding the Pal Pad and just take the prizes here instead. There's another Guardy coming from prizes, which is really solid. Have to be somewhat aware of Lost City as well in the matchup. The opponent literally just comes in and swings with Charizard EX. Pretty routine turn. So we have 6 in the bin right now. We're going to go into Guardy EX to start things off. We actually pick up the Vacuum, which is really good. And we can start working towards this Charizard KO, actually. Started to pick up some more energy. That's a really good concealed card as well. We get another Psychic that we can pitch. We have Ultra Ball in the hand. So now we're at 8, 2, 4... Yeah, we're at 8 Psychic Energy in the bin. 1 away for a Zacian KO here. We're holding Vacuum. I can draw 3 more. I think I'm just debating whether or not I'm going for Avery or just like research draws here. The alternative as well is if I just go for Boss's Orders now and attack with EX, I'm so far ahead on prize trade that I don't have to really be too concerned. This is a really ugly Iono for them, but if I'm taking the draw off their board, I feel like they have a worse time Ionoing us anyway. And I still have a 1 prize board state after this, and I'll still have like a ton of draw available, so... It's a bit of a strange line when I was working so... Well, I was pretty close to getting a Charizard KO, but this way round, if I don't end up, like, committing my draws and then missing, it's going to work out, like, okay for me to still win in a 2-attack game plan. I am a little bit vulnerable to Iono here. I definitely could have considered using the Vacuum. I also could have considered proactively benching Zacian, but I'm scared of Lost City, right? So, especially when my reversal's not online, I didn't want to just fall prey to that. The issue with attacking with EX here, yes, I'm keeping as much draw power on board as possible, but it lets them take a 2-prize knockout without having to use boss themselves. I suppose they already have counter catcher, so it's not a huge deal here. And they do end up just going for Burning Darkness. They're unable to get hand disruption, so we should just be working towards our last Psych Energy to close game here with Zacian. And there it is, we have it alongside the Fog Crystal as well, so should be pretty routine now. We pitch the Psychic, I can drop the Zacian, I can start embracing to the active to retreats, then we can bung the rest onto Zacian, and we have the Vacuum in hand. Fairly fortunate to be up against a deck that didn't really commit to its engine too much. Like, typically you'd see from that Forest Stone quite often a Bibarel, but either way I bossed it and KO'd it anyway, so not all that likely that we're going to disrupt. Getting into our next game then, we have a Cress, and we are kicking things off here. And we're up against Stall, okay. And Stall's an interesting one. We do have Pal Pad Turo Boss, so we do have some Recycle. We have a number of Pokemon as well which can attack, like, aggressively. So even if they are going to be trapping stuff like the Cress, it's not ideal for us, but we can still deal some amount of damage, which is something. And the opponent actually leads Rotom, which means I can retreat this Cress turn 1, which is pretty important. I think I really want to do that, honestly, just before the opponent gets a Lax into the active. I'm also going to spend Ultra Ball just to get another Ralts down and pass things over. Let's see how long it takes them to move this Rotom. 190 is a really nice hit point threshold for us, honestly. They're able to Arven for VIP, so they can get their Snorlax in the mix. They probably want to Bravery... Yeah, they're Bravery Charm active. I definitely agree with that. You see more Snorlax coming down. So they developed, but they are just coming to end on instant charge. They don't play that many switch cards, honestly. They play... yeah, quite few. We really don't want to get rid of this Vacuum, so I do just Iono here. And we are able to find Psych Energy plus Kirlia, but I don't have Mirage Step. That's prized, unfortunately. We're going to start tossing away the awkward Pokemon. You'll notice there's a Miriam in this list as well. I was kind of disillusioned with the lack of supporters in this deck list. So I was trying out a Miriam, but trust me, it's bad. Go back to double Rod. But you'll notice that in just this game. I still wanted to show this game because it's against Snorlax, and I feel like it's good to highlight some of the lines of play that we have against them. We're going to Candy EX, and then evolve into the active to Shining Arcana. We do have Level Ball as well for our last Refinement Kirlia. I'm going to pitch the Zacian. Then we can grab the next Ralts, and we're just going to Avery. We have 2 Psychic in the bin, so I can Brainwave for 120 here, which is 2-hit-shotting the Rotom. And Reversal's never online for us for its full capacity. And we want to play around Sydney, so it makes sense to just bung it in now. Get some pressure in. There's no guarantee they have like the early Penny here. There's still so many cards in their deck. And yeah, they are forced to Arven here, which is pretty good for us. They can switch cards, so they're playing around a 2-shot here. Or at least forcing us to have another Psych Energy with Boss. Plus, we use Boss to free ourselves very often from block. You basically have to think of Boss's orders as a switch card. We can just turn attach and go for Brainwave KO here pretty happily. I'm also going to play this Miriam, so just assume it's a Rod. Pretty much. I was really on something this day, but yeah. Just wanted to have an extra draw supporter. Draws 3, it's broken. Either way, we attach and can start KOing Snorlax now. This does unlock counter catcher for the opponent. They actually go for a big Erika's and whiff. We did just shuffle all the Pokemon back in. And didn't draw back into them from Miriam. At that point, they get to scout the hand, so they know that I have Turo, they know I have Boss, they know I have Pal Pad. So, these are all ugly cards for them to see, I would say. We are going to see the counter catcher. Just instant charge. So definitely want to boss the Rotom here and just deny their engine. Also means I can retreat this Crest. Like I said, we want to use boss as a switch card. You notice I'm also not drawing here because I basically just don't want to draw into cards for another Ericas at this stage. There's nothing else I need in the hand because I'm holding Turo Pad. So I really want to hold this hand, actually. I want to use my Turo, or like be forced to use Turo. Then I can Pal Pad back boss Turo. And that's 2 more pivots for me, and we're already at 3 prize cards remaining, so we're in a pretty advantageous position here. See Pokegear from them. Another Arven, that's not too scary. More Pokegears, you can see they want other cards, essentially. Misfortune Sisters is not a problem, because we're holding on to Pal Pad. That's the biggest card that we want to draw towards in the matchup. I actually see a Rod now. And they're going to go Pidgeot Forest. So maybe they even need to get Rotom back just for more draw here. It's pretty ugly. Yeah, they are going to vanish the Pidgeot back in and re-establish the Rotom. It's really scary for them, though, because I can't... Like, they know I have Pal Pad. They saw it from the Ericas. So I can definitely boss them again. We're just going to have a look at what's what here. Gonna play Ultra Ball. Just grab another Gardevoir. And we are just going to go for the Churro. And we've got to push to 210 with the Bravery Charms now. So that's what we're going to do. Then I'm going to Pal Pad back boss Churro, like I said. I wanted to get this proactively because it's basically always those 2 supporters in the matchup. But also that I'm trying to refine away the Crest, but then I've just drawn into another one. And the Greninja is actually a worse Pokemon to have in the active. But either way, now they know that in the deck we have Churro and we have Boss's Orders. As we see the Echoing Horn for the Crest, that's fine. Like, we know for a fact we have 2 supporters that can't get disrupted now, and that's always 2 ways around this. So there should never be an issue. Now it's just the point of us drawing through the deck, and we just always win here. Because we have 2 ways around block, and that's all we need. We're not concerned about any shenanigans with Mimikyu. So yeah, and they just retreat on the boss there, where I can just pay retreat the Crest. So let's get into our next game. We get to go first again. And we have the Mew start. You'll notice, again, as always with these videos, I'm trying around different deck lists. There's this debate around VIP versus no VIP and Fish. You'll notice in this list there's Artisan, which means it's probably going to be a no VIP list in this battle video. But it's because I'm like between the 2, honestly. I don't think there's one outright best. And from the testing, I feel like a hybrid is probably my preferred way, honestly. But you'll notice some few variations with the list, like the random Miriam in the last game. I'm going to bank an energy onto the Ralts. I'm really hoping it's not like a catcher build of Fusion Mew. That's the only way that this attachment is a risk. But it means that I have Level Ball for Mirage Step next turn. So that's looking pretty good. The opponent is able to VIP, and then they judge away a pretty good hand, actually. And we do see that they're a double turbo Mew with their attachment. Let's see, Heavy Ball for the next Genesect. They've gone wide. Wouldn't surprise me if they end on a path here either. But they just pass things over. We actually do top deck Psychic, so I can tail. I actually tail for the best outcome, which is just Level Ball, so I don't have to do a painful Ultra Ball here. I can just make the retreat into Mirage Step play. This is looking really good for us already. Whenever you're able to get full value, turn 2, Step, it's really, really good. And Mew gives us so much time, honestly. Especially with Avery now in the deck list, I feel, especially against DTE Mew, this is definitely a decent matchup. I think the big thing to watch out for is the number of path bounces that we have access to. We do see the Box of Disaster onto the Mew VMAX, so they are coming prepared with the techs. They judge away a pretty nice hand for us, actually, the research going, but we do draw back into it. And we also get back into EX, which is looking nice. So see a Cram Heads. Got to feel like at one of these stages they're going to weave in Path as well. Just an extra piece for us to try and look out for. They're scattering some tools around, getting a few more Fusion Strike systems in. See, Ultra Ball gets rid of Mew. That's actually pretty good for us because they're not playing around Avery right now by discarding Pokemon. Like, honestly, I don't really know what they're digging for so crazily here. They do eventually hit heads on a Cram. And, like, sure, Puff's pretty good here, but you should never really get rid of your excess Pokemon in this matchup now that Avery's a card. Definitely got to be aware of that. They do end up Max Miracling through our Kirlia. Now, we have a lot of dig towards Vacuum here, specifically, which is pretty nice. We can Ultra Ball and grab an Arcana Guardi. They actually messed up my sequencing a little bit here. I probably should have refined one more time there before using that, because now I really had to hit off that Mysterious Tail, so that was actually a bit of a missequence. I have drawn into the Avery, which is looking pretty good here. I thought the Research was a pretty obvious play, but essentially as soon as you can Avery a Mew now, it's massive, I think. Really just stunts like the remainder of their game, makes Iono actually a Disruption supporter again, essentially. So and I'm pretty happy with not attacking this turn. We can get away with it. If we do whiff, we still do have 4 draws here. And just refine away Research now that we know that Iono is going to be good for us in future. I have too many good resources in the hand now to actually afford Research. I can Rod back some basics here and get another Ralts developed. Get Zacian back in the mix. That's normally our end game attacker. And we can pretty much just pass things over here. Small debate around whether or not I just go for EX, but they haven't played any power tablets yet, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. I was going to put the Avery and the Iono back into the deck to try and play around these judges. Just pass things over there. We still have so much draw on the board, as they do end up judging. It's a bit of a strange hand. Countercatcher is pretty much always good here. But a lot of energy, which is actually pretty good for what we're looking to do here, which is ramp towards Brainwave. Honestly, even though we can win in 2 attacks, we still have such a nice prize buffer that I think going for Countercatcher or Boss KO on their Forest Hill Stone Genesect is looking pretty good. We've drawn Worker now as well, so we can go Worker, Countercatcher, KO Genesect, and then we're in really good shape. As long as we can draw into our Guardi EX, which is still lacking from this hand after all these draws. We have Greninja to try and get there, and we eventually do, which is really nice, actually. So we can go full board, maintaining a really nice state of affairs here, and we can go for a big Brainwave KO. That would be their last... Oh, sorry, not their last Genesect. This will be their 3rd Genesect hit in the discard pile, and their 3rd Forest Hill Stone. So they haven't been able to cash in on Forest, actually, which is pretty insane. And we're starting to bounce back in the prize race, which is looking great. And we've really stunted the draw of Mew now. 3 Genesects in their bin, 1 Mew in their bin. They do just come back with Iono, though. There's their last Genesect. Just going to draw 1. There's another path. In the list that we're playing, I play Artisan, Collapsed, and Vacuum, so I still have plenty of outs, actually. Iono's not a bad pickup. I'm just going to keep religiously recycling these Guardi pieces. I think I don't need Ralts in the mix at this stage. We can just keep getting rid of some Psych Energy, ramping our damage as much as possible here. We have 6, 7 in the bin right now. I'm just going to go Reversal Iono, probably. Oh, we are just going to attach an Iono instead. I could always pop the Box of Disaster just with a Teleportation Burst here if everything goes to pot. And I think that's what we're eyeing up here. I don't have a KO on the VMAX, so we're just going to try and pop the box here. Again, like, I'm not too worried now about them making some heroic tablet boss combos because they only have 1 Genesect drawing. So I don't really have to be too threatened by them, and the rest of my board is still single prize, so I can still have a really nice 2-attack game plan here. And the disruption is, like, we're feeling the disruption, but they're starting to run out of judges and Ionos, let's face it. And they do end up just swinging here. They're going down to 2 prize cards. We can continue to thin out with Fog Crystal. Then we're going to start drawing with Arcana. Boss's Orders is looking pretty reasonable here as well. I could just boss the last Genesect. And then we're working towards Zacian for game. Don't really see a reason to not go for that here. We still have our other Arcana in the deck as well, so I can always attack with that later. So yeah, we've really sort of just dismantled the engine of the Mew here, so they're really not coming up with much. Like, they're basically just going to be in a spot of, in their best case scenario, they just go for a Hand Disruptor and response KO for a single prize. It would have to be like the perfect hand to actually deal with our EX at this stage. They can't even copy Technoblast now, so like all of their attacks are just gone. They can only Max Miracle now. Or Psychic Leap. But they do end up having the Iono, so quite fortunate actually that with no draw engine they were still able to get there, but we ripped Zacian off the top and that should be game. That was all we needed to hit, I think. 3, 6, 7 in the discard pile, 8, 9 with the retreat, so yeah. All we needed was the doggo to get over the line, so we're going to be able to embrace the rest of the game and get over the line. We did have a few whiffs there, honestly, but we just really controlled the board. You'll notice that PTG Live still sucks, so let's chop our way to the next game. Yeah, still somehow people conceding into Psychic Embrace doesn't work. You know, what can you say at this point? Now we have a mirror. We get to go first, which is really nice. We have a lot of energy, sheesh. But not much else other than hoping to Mirage Step. Let's see what the opponent has. They're able to, well, yeah, not much their end either. Oh no, we prized our Mirage Step. The lone Ralts looks a lot worse now. Let's get drawing. We do hit another Ralts, which is something. I can Turo, yeah, Turo for card draw, sure. That's a lot of Psych Energy at least. And we're just gonna have to, well, we can slap for 30, I suppose. Yeah, we were looking in a really good position, but not able to step is really rough. The opponent obviously is able to step, so it's going to be a big comeback if we're able to manage this. I know we went first, but sheesh, this turn 2 is no bueno. They probably just have to step here, yeah. Never want to play draw supporters in case you draw your Kirlias. We have drawn a decent amount of energy, though. That's really gone well. There's already 5 in the discard pile, 2 on the active. There's our next refinement. And because we've been attaching these energies quite nicely, I don't need to EX here, obviously, so I can just keep drawing with refinement instead. And just attach and Arcana. And take the KO that way. So that's a lot of our energy already thinned out. It's a bit unfortunate because it's really nice to bank energy throughout the entire game for consistent draws with concealed cards. But it's just the way the hand kind of mapped out here. Gonna get rid of Vacuum. It's really not all that great in this matchup. Then we're going to Arcana. We can get rid of the Zacian. We're just going to get another Ralts in the mix here. No, we're going to swap for a Manaphy. It's also kind of reasonable. There's a strange back and forth in this matchup of trying to maintain your part of the engine whilst like maintaining a prize gap with them, especially when I'm the aggressor. As the aggressor by 1 prize right now, I'm not going to have reversal energy. I'm not going to have counter catcher. So I'm kind of at their mercy a little bit. They're probably going to be the one with a better board state, especially because they Mirage Stepped and I wasn't able to. I'm still like recovering from that. But at least we have prize lead. That's like the one good thing that we have going for us right now. But we really want to try and like maintain as much draw as possible there. The Manaphy was debatable, honestly. Maybe the just another Ralts was the stronger choice there. That was kind of close. Also, I did take a Kirlia from prizes, which made the extra Ralts like look better. Either way, it gets Iono to the bottom. We can start seeing refinements on their end. Fog Crystal. And they're basically always just going to Roaring Scream through the active, right? That's definitely their game plan. Limits our draw, limits our attacker, makes us rebuild. Definitely the best thing they can do here. They finally are able to Ultra Ball grab EX after a ton of draws. Next Ralts is down as well. They're revving up the Roaring Scream. The good news is they have to put 80 damage on themselves, so I can reply with like a teleportation burst. Could reply with just a slap from my own Scream Tail. So that's pretty reasonable. I think that's why you're seeing me promote Ralts here as a potential teleportation burst attack. Reverse Energy is not going to be live for a little while. 8 of our Psych Energy are in the bin. We have 1 more in the deck, I believe. Gonna refine away Mew. This hand really isn't great. We can, yeah, make another Kirlia just to draw some more cards. The fact that we don't have a supporter right now is a little bit rough. I can then pay Retreat with energy, perhaps, and still try and get Scream Tail in here. It's a little bit awkward that I'm damaging my Kirlia. But it's the best way that I can try and protect a little bit of draw power here. We're way behind in terms of board presence, especially with no supporter being played here. If we had an Avery here, if we had an Iono, I'd feel a lot better about my position, but we're really behind on board state now. Again, up in prizes, but behind on board states. Especially if the opponent can go for Cress on Kirlia, or if they can like recover Scream Tail and put it on the well, I guess not the active is fine, but I'm also somewhat worried about just Gardevoir EX going down at any points. Because they can reach on EX when they have reversal available. Like Counter Catcher, KO, Gardevoir is really scary for us. We'll have to see here what they can construct. I honestly prefer being the player who's behind on prizes in the mirror match, but when we didn't have Step, I just felt so pressurized to actually take prizes. Because if I'm not ahead in the prize race and my board's worse, like, what am I doing? It's definitely a cat and mouse matchup where you're always trying to min-max your like late game options, trying to continually maintain board presence. The opponent gets a pretty nice Iono win on us here. They do redevelop Scream Tail, which is better for us than a Cress. I think Cress and Kirlia there would be really bad news for me. We also get a Rod, which is pretty nice, at least from this Iono, so I can start reloading some key pieces. See, Ultra Ball. Oh, so they played Jirachi over Cress possibly here, which is pretty nice for us. So maybe they just have to, yeah, come in with Scream Tail and take out the active. That's something for us at least. Yeah, they're just going to dish out the 80. I have to go EX here, so it looks like it's going to be a Cress. Ideally, it's going to be Cress KOing a Kirlia here. But I may not have board space, honestly. Yeah, I'm debating the Fish here. Fish for Avery. Just try and limit their board, and then I will Cress through their active. So it's not ideal, but it's, again, keeping up with tempo. Also, this gives the opponent the chance to take a 2-prize KO on the Fish. And that would actually, like, reactivate my reversal and my comeback cards. it kind of is also important for me to get the fish or the Guardi off the board over the next 2 turns. I can try and do that with Collapsed, though. So I can try and fix the board. Our board still looks way worse than our opponents. But we know now that they probably aren't playing Crest because they already had an opportunity to use it. So I feel pretty safe that Kirlia is going to be around. Unless the opponent counter catches that. But I feel like for their 2-attack game plan, they're always going to take out Fish or Guardi EX this turn. And if they do that, we need to try and work towards Iono and make things messy for the opponents. So we're still behind on board state. Still ahead on prizes, but we're about to go behind on prizes because we've seen counter catcher here. Yeah, counter catcher reversal, load up the big brainwave. The fact that we had 20 on us doesn't actually change anything. Because the Guardi EX, oh sorry, the Guardi with reversal can deal so much. We get hit with Iono, which isn't that bad because we didn't actually have our own Iono in hand. Doesn't give us many options to work with though. They're going to reload some basics. They're going to start Arcanaing. Actually hit a Psychic. That's, again, doesn't really matter. Because we have to go through their active next turn. So the hope is that they take 2 this turn, we take 1 next turn. Then they can only take 1, ideally. Either we deny them boss by just disrupting them and giving them not enough draw power. They'll still have 20 cards overall. 22 cards overall. So there's no guarantee that they'll be able to take the fish out next turn, especially because I'm taking out more draw from them. And then I'm working towards my own countercatcher play because they'll take 1 on the Cress is the dream. We haven't yet hit Collapsed. That's still something we want to try and find here. I'm going to toss boss because we know we have countercatcher still in the list. We're going to pitch a reversal. We still have 1 more reversal in the deck. We currently don't have a Guardi EX, so I have to EX here, just so that I can do a Moonglow KO. So we really just have to hope that their 2-card hand plus Arcana draws can't get them towards boss. If they can't boss the fish, we're actually looking pretty good, honestly. They've got rid of a few Ultra Balls as well, so even if they do play fish, they don't have that many outs. 5 cards out of a 22-card deck. We're actually... It's pretty favourable for us to win here now. That we're holding on to countercatcher especially. It's just going to be us working towards Zacian on their EX or Arcana Guardi. I still have 1 reversal energy, don't forget, so... Ooh, they do hit Iono, though, which is a bit rough for us. There's the collapse that we whiffed. And the reversal energy. Reversal energy is actually really annoying because we have 2 energy now at the bottom of our deck. And I need reversal energy to be able to knock out the Guardi EX with my Arcana Guardi. As they scream tail through the active. So we actually have our work cut out for us here, and currently no draw to do it unless I get rid of reversal energy. Yeah, candy's a piece that I need. I still think I have both candies. Yeah, I still have both my candies unused. Ooh, but we hit research, and we have an 8-card deck. So we can research Guardi, and actually our bottom deck is our last energy, so I can attach via Arcana, turn attach, and then we can get the additional 6. We just about clutch it out. What a nail-biting game. We were pretty behind thanks to the Mirage deck, but man, we pulled this one out the bag. The fact that the Psych Energy was the bottom deck, perfectly calculated. We just about got there. There's definitely cleaner lines to win, but that certainly was effective and a really cool game to show. It really is a wild mirror. There's so many weird lines that you can take. Let's get another game in. We have Screamtail lead. We're back to a VIP pass build here. You can see that I've been juggling between the 2. I typically gravitate towards the VIP, just for allowing us to get more draw in the opening stages, essentially. Gets you higher odds of getting like Manaphy defense as well, so We're working towards a Mirage Step turn 2 with the attachment to the Ralts here. Oh, and it turns out they're Palkia Valiant, probably. From how they're setting up, or at least a Melanie Valiant. Yeah, definitely is going to be Palkia. Okay. A tough matchup, no doubt. Let's see Tachyon Bits. Let's to pressurize our Ralts. There's Energy to Suicune. Fleet-footed. Medicham and Research. Okay, pretty scary starts, honestly. At least they're not Melanie attacking. That's the good news. They are threatening Greninja KO as well next turn. So straight away I'm going to grab Manaphy to protect ourselves. We have a lot of outs to find Psych Energy here. We can just throw an Iono down here. And we do find Psych Energy. And we're just going to step. I also had a Kirlia in the previous hand. I chose not to evolve that one because there were still decent odds of me Ionoing into another. So I wanted to have the highest odds for full value Mirage Step, if that makes sense. Because I can always red candy the floating Ralts as well. And the 70 and 80 is the same hit points in terms of Yoga Loop target. So if you're wondering why I didn't evolve like pre-Iono, it was because I was guaranteeing a Kirlia that was at the bottom of the deck. So I could still get step value. Plus, I didn't want to like draw from Refinement that turn anyway, because it's another way that we can draw more Kirlias. The opponent's going to continue to damage our Ralts, and they are powering up a Yoga Loop here by the looks of things. Star Portal, that only goes to Water Dudes, but Greninja's getting ready to rumble. Let's see a Rope now. Oh, interesting. Maybe they weren't able to Yoga here. Okay, they're going to end up bossing anyway and just swing into Kirlia. Right. We still have a lot of work to do here, but we can finally start drawing through this deck. Turo is interesting as well. It could be a way for us to like heal this Ralts out of Yoga Loop range. Candy Guardi is certainly interesting. Also, just Guardi EX is interesting. We have a lot of interesting play here. I don't think I can't get a KO from this board. I could try and clean up the board. Yeah, I think cleaning up the board with Cress is pretty tasty here. Turo to heal the Ralts is also looking good. Yeah. I think this is the best thing I can do. Maybe set up the Palkia or set up the Suicune for Guardi EX to finish off. This is a slower turn, but I've basically just tried to negate their early pressure. There's a debate to putting on the Palkia. There's a debate to putting it on the active. The main reason to put it on the Suicune is just that the Suicune is probably the thing that's going to swing at me this turn. So I can just finish it off with the X next turn. That's what we opt for. Obviously, the Palkia's got a lot of reason to target that down as well. As the opponent is now going to shift their attention to the Manaphy. They can Fleetfoot and then take out the Cress. So we have set up the Guardi EX to take a KO here, so that's probably what we're going to do this turn. There's Iono, which is looking really nice. That will be our third energy hitting the bin with a retreat of this Ralts. I'm going to swing a reversal onto the Kirlia just in case I draw Arcana Guardi. I do hit Ultra Ball. We can grab another Refinement Kirlia first, though. And then we can Refine, and we can then get Arcana Guardi. You'll notice again, this one's playing the Miriam. I've had a few games with Miriam, let me tell you. It's still not great. But it's something that we've experimented with. We're going to end up finishing off the Suicune here with Arcana Guardi. Really nice to weave in a one prizer at this stage of the game. I'm still very nervous of Yoga Loop on this Manaphy, though. Let's see how the Iono did. Start seeing some more Tachyon Bits. And are they just going to come in with Palkia here? If so, we have our next reversal ready to rumble, which is nice. I'm just going to feed the Manaphy in case they don't have enough bits and bobs to Yoga Loop us here. Turns out they do have enough switching outs to get through the Manaphy. We can just go Screamtail now. Oh, we're just going to go Ralts, okay. It's going to get roped anyway. Now we'll give up Scream. No, we're going to give up Kirlia. Why am I not giving up Screamtail there? That's pretty weird. Either way, they've cleared the Manaphy, so now they can actually take a big 3-prize turn here. Take out double Kirlia, which is pretty yikes for us. You can see I'm just doing math here with my Gardy. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27 with my next reversal. And I have Countercatcher in hand. I'm going to slam the Avery here, first of all, and just limit their push potential. I can Candy up into another Gardy and just really stay a little bit out of range of their single prize attackers. And honestly, just because they only have Palkia here developed, I think I'm still in pretty good shape here. Ooh, especially with Arcana hitting. It means I don't even have to damage this Gardy. We can just have a very powerful Brainwave here doing a huge chunk. 300 damage. And then we're just gust away from winning. So they have to formulate some sort of attack here. Suicune's not enough. Because we Arcana'd the extra energy on. They'd have to have a ton of like Tachyon bits plus like Raihan or something. Chorus really isn't great for them. Let's see some switch cart shenanigans, but all they can do really is hide into Greninja, right? I think. And they're just going to pass. Let's have a look. Yeah, the boss is in the deck. We have 6 draws to try and get there. And we do end up hitting it. Nice. So we can finish off with a Brainwave. So, yeah, was trying a few different variations. Take no notice of the Miriam. Trust me, you don't want that. But I'm just really trying to work in extra supporters. When I'm not playing the Lumineon, I'm like, damn, this doesn't play enough draw supporters ever. But yeah, don't do that. Stick with the list that I had at the start of the video, because that's like the end of my testing session where I think the best list lands. And I think that hybrid option of, yes, playing VIP Pass, but also playing Fish is probably the most correct way, honestly. Because endgame supporters are still some of the biggest things to have outs towards to win, because you need to have Iono on the spot, you need to have those bosses orders as and when, because sometimes you give up so many prize cards that the only way to come back is to take multi-prize turns every single turn of the game from like turn 3 or 4 when you finally get developed. So let me know your thoughts on Gardevoir. Some wacky games in there, really cool one in the mirror actually. One of my scrappiest wins in the mirror. Typically it's a lot cleaner of a matchup, but it's one of those things where I prize Mirage Step in my hand, had no other way to search the deck at the time or have any insight to it. So yeah, a bit of a wonky set of games, but hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.